pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Welcome to the second regular board meeting of the Bill's Board of Trustees, October 24th, 2022. Can I get a motion that the minutes of October 11th, 2022, that meeting be approved?
I'll make that motion.
I think Trustee Pendenza had it first, just barely.
Okay.
It's close. Would you like a second?
I'll let it go this time.
Yes. Would you like a second though?
I would absolutely.
Trustee Raymond, discussion? All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Mayor announcements. So I think I spoke out on Facebook, but I'll state it again. I was asked to be a guest along with Ed Martin for the Malta Avenue PTA, the elementary schools PTA. And we had a great, robust conversation. Some questions from the students that they asked, the parents asked for the students, except for the student representative, but also some from the parents as well. Talked a lot about signage, safety, and possibly creating a painted school zone, which I said if the school district sends us a letter and asks us for something like that, obviously we would consider it. It's paint on the ground. It's nothing earth shattering, but it's something that when it comes to being around their school area, we'd like to have their input on something like that. Also striking some parking spots that they think are needed as well. So Ed Martin and I are talking about what those next steps are. But one of the things that came up there, and also with my discussion with Dr. Duca, who's the interim superintendent of the school district, is about trying to add a crossing guard, because currently we only have Carmen Isabella as our crossing guard over there. He does a great job, but obviously it's good to have two just in case one's ill or on vacation or just for safety's sake. But we also realized that our parking enforcement officer, Terry, is not looking to continue during the winter because his age and the elements have seemed to merge, unfortunately. And so Dave Bush and I had a conversation last week about what to do. With the knowledge that we probably need another crossing guard, but we also need a parking enforcement officer. And we came to the conclusion that we could merge the position into something that was a fair number of hours per day. And would be more appealing for somebody that might want to do crossing guard, because crossing guard's a split shift, an hour and a half in the morning, hour and a half in the afternoon. So not many people can really do that. So here's a consistent position for somebody to take on. And so we are doing a search for that right now, and it's gotten some good feedback with that approach. So keep you updated on that. Also, I'm sure Sean's going to talk about this a little bit, but paving is complete for the streets that need it. Next up are patches and pothole handling. We've got leaf pickup as well coming up. I'll defer to you on those dates. Once that's concluded, though, I've been assured that the new street signs, which are are ready to be placed throughout the village, hopefully before the end of the year. So look out for those. Should be a great enhancement to the village, especially where you're missing signs altogether. We have a lot of personnel changes and other changes going on, so I just want to keep you updated. Tomorrow, Tricia Hasbrook will be starting as our new receptionist data entry clerk. That's equivalent, but not the identical position. We've kind of reformulated the position after Denise Bardino left last Tuesday. We also, I believe, intend, or at least Terry has intended, she's told me to name her or appoint her as deputy clerk and deputy registrar of vital statistics to keep it up in front of the office. We had Julia doing those roles. It didn't seem to make much sense to have her focusing on treasurer and then these other things as the day went along, because treasurer is pretty much a full-time job through and through, and then some. And so we want to make sure that we're splitting up the duties the right way in the office. So that's probably the way that goes here. We will be discussing the treasurer position in a bit, as Julia Smith left us the prior Friday to when Denise left. Also, with respect to Labella, I had mentioned Eric Johnson was leaving to, I think, become the engineer of Bethlehem, I think it was. So congratulations to him. But we met with Joe Lanero, who is our main contact now at Labella Engineering. Sean Jafgaris and I met with him to especially discuss a plan to identify underground utilities on Front Street and at Wiswall Park before the Front Street construction occurs early next year. We have a proposal from Labella, I think it was $29,000 to do that work. That would be something we could use ARPA funds for, as it is working on underground utilities. And it would be of paramount importance to get this completed before any master planning begins for Wiswall Park. It will help expedite any work needed to be done on utilities when the street's being worked on next year. We don't want to basically have to sit there with the street in disrepair for weeks or months and, you know, you have to go hire somebody on the fly. This is an idea of just trying to get the planning done. It is kind of a template for what we should be doing probably for the 11-year plan or cycle of roads we have or streets as we identify streets with older infrastructure when we're not sure exactly what's where underground. Granted, the price tag is pretty hefty, $29,000, but in this case, we knew that there was going to be some cost in the master plan for Wiswall Park as it was, and we decided to go, I think, just beyond Bath Street, it's all the way down to Route 50, essentially, for the piece of Front Street that we're going to be looking at. Because again, we know that we have obviously mains going down Front Street, but across it as well, it seems to be because of the spring water that's getting across the Wiswall Park somehow. So again, we just don't know where exactly everything is, how deep they are, and what the conditions are. So this will help us make that determination and maybe hire somebody to help deal with it in the spring. A lot of people have been asking me about what's going on with the beehive. I wanted to give full transparency on this situation. There was an application that was being made to the zoning board for a use variance to make a 4-family out of the former 8-family. Unfortunately, because of the duration of basically dead period with that property, it has reverted back to R1. So a 4-family is not possible there. And a use variance is likely not possible either because they bought the property with the zoning in the condition it's in, and that's usually the death knell to getting a use variance. So Rory O'Connor, who's the planning board chair, Anna Stanko, the zoning board chair, and I had sat down with the current owners, or one of them, there's 2 owners, a few weeks back to kind of break the news, see where they wanted to go with it, offer assistance to the degree we can with ideas or thoughts about what's next and what they can do with that property. And we've had some back and forth, and they also had a possible buyer beyond them for that property that asked to meet with us as well. And the general philosophy is this: we're all working together to get that property handled in some way within the law's confines, because again, there's not much you can do with that large building, but people that have been buying that property or intending to buy that property are placing value in the building. And so that causes a little bit of a conundrum for anybody trying to develop that or to take care of that property. We're working with them. We're trying to figure out what to do or where to guide them ultimately so that they have the ability through the zoning board and the planning board to get something positive done with that property, because I know it is something that a lot of people do not like to see in its current condition, me included. I think the rest of the trustees as well. So we are working on that, and we are actively making sure that we're accommodating where we can with respect to that property, knowing your feelings on that. We are working to try for Bath Street sledding. We have a tentative date of Saturday, February 11th, 2013, and we've begun to reach out to the county to check whether they'll want to be involved again, as we received several requests to bring back this event, and so we'll keep you posted. But I've been kind of inundated with requests the last couple of weeks about this one, and so it's obviously missed by the kids and the parents alike. So we're going to try to get that one back together again, and we'll, like I said, keep you updated. Holiday Parade is December 2nd, Friday, 6:30 p.m. That is presented by the VSBPA and hosted here by the village, beginning in the north end and going down Route 50 to the south. And finally, we had a great tour. What was it, last Monday? A week ago today, with 2 representatives from Empire State Development connected with New York Forward, Joseph Landy and Linda Dillon. And since this is the last thing for me, Bernadette, go ahead and tell folks about it, and go ahead and start liaison reports as well after you're done with that.
So Ballston was contacted by Empire State Development. not only to give some more information and then to visit. They wanted a site visit, and you know, we took them around for about an hour in the pouring rain, which was fun for everyone. But, you know, we kind of walked them through our building, our village office building. We walked them through the zone that we're proposing, and the general, you know, they have to be close to the vest, but the one thing they remarked at the end, which was kind of promising, is that the zone boundaries are good, which is kind of nice. So I hope to hear more information, but it was a good opportunity to get in front of them and to start building a relationship, because they also mentioned other grant opportunities that haven't been available for a while. So there's some changes around with money in New York State itself, and they kind of saw something about the side that might, you know, be, what's the word I'm looking for, that we would kind of maybe qualify for. So more as soon as we get information. So that's for the New York Florida team. BSBPA kind of took the gist of it. Parade, make sure you guys come. It's a lovely parade, but they need volunteers. So if anyone's interested to volunteer for the parade, it's not just the parade itself that needs volunteers. There's volunteers at roadblocks, volunteers at the site where they light up the Christmas tree. So I'm sure you can email Dana at the SBPA for those that are interested. And just to start with arts a little bit, we're team now on arts, which is nice. There was some interesting information that we found out from Saratoga Arts. They are receiving additional funds in the coming year, and they encourage the village to consider ways that we could be a fiscal sponsor for different applications. And what that means is that we can not only apply for our normal grant that our village tries to get through the Arts Committee, but this fiscal sponsor sort of designation, it would be something that individual artists can apply for and say, with our approval, with our board approval, that the village is a fiscal sponsor. It can be organizations. So the Arts Committee is working on getting together communications for a call for artists. I'm assuming the board would be okay with that if we move forward with that intention that we would support applications that the Arts Committee vets, to say that, you know, we would be happy to be their fiscal sponsor if that's. We haven't had a chance to talk to you guys about that, but it was a kind of new, really interesting kind of thing that we learned from Saratoga Arts that I'm not sure if it's new or we just never knew about it, but more funds, and they're looking to get more applications because apparently it means they'll get more funds after that, which is kind of crazy and good in a good way. So
is there like they give us a pot of money and then we distribute it? Is that how it works?
No. So basically it's that we would have up to 5 is the way they described it. I think that's the way, and I'll confirm, but basically up to 5 different applicants could apply seeking our support. We would not be giving money, it's just support in the sense that, hey, we think it's great that you're going to apply, the village is behind you, and it's going to benefit the village in some way. That's what
Sort of like sponsors.
yeah.
Fiscal sponsor.
Yeah, so, and that's just the language they use, so, it's kind of exciting.
Kind of throwing me off because fiscal sponsor.
I know.
Yeah, that's a good question, yeah, no, so I'm glad to clarify that.
The village gets up to 3 applications, but nothing totaling or the
No greater.
aggregate $5,000 is the maximum for the village itself. But as an alternative or in addition to, we can also, as Bernadette stated, pre-vet basically individuals or not-for-profits, et cetera, that have projects and make sure that, you know, they put their applications in those things as fiscal sponsor. And what it basically does is allow Saratoga Arts to say, hey, they're backed by the Village of Ballston Spa, so they must be okay, or we've taken away one layer of need of, you know, verifying that they would normally need. So it just makes the process a lot easier for somebody that, you know, you got to.
They're looking to give money and I say we go after it. So I mean, the Arts Committee seemed excited about it. And there's some things that they're sorting out still regarding their current grant. And, just trying to figure out what to do, whether they're going to be able to do that mural or not. And then from there, we'll just, they'll be able to decide, and as a board, we'll be able to decide what to do next. So, but that's all I got in my end.
And thanks to Carla for actually building a bridge
Yes.
between us and Saratoga Arts to get those conversations started. She's not just a great attorney, she has a little bit of an artistic flair and support in her life. And so she said, hey, you guys know my village, or one of my villages, and the rest is history here. Ben.
So the Arts Committee continues to talk with the library about potential location for a mural. The latest idea is, it seems like we've run out of viable walls on the outside, so can we put a mural on the inside? And so they continue to talk about where that might be. And hoping.
Be good and loud there, Ben, just to leave.
All right.
Yeah, sorry about that.
And they continue to pursue the idea of a free craft box in the model of a free library, the little libraries that you see in boxes on the streets that do that for crafts outside the library walls. So that's a neat idea. And the next meeting, they're going to finalize their charter. They've been revising their charter, what their responsibilities are and how they will function. So they've been talking about that for a month or two. Next meeting, they should be ready. So that's on the website.
And they realize we'll have to ultimately approve their approval.
Right, yeah, and then it'll come to us after they'll propose something for us to approve.
Good, thank you.
But they'll finalize what they're going to bring to us next meeting. And so they would serve, as we sort of indicated, as the first screen of people who want to get a arts grant from Saratoga Arts. They would vet those initially and see which ones they approve, and then send that to the board. Wiswall had a meeting. I missed it because of daytime work, but I have good notes here. They had a master woodworker, Gary Stevenson, and anyone, I know there's some people here who were at the meeting, you can chime in when it's public comment. Gary Stevenson, a master woodworker, he looked at the benches, and you guys can talk more about that, but basically it would take a decent amount of work to redo the benches, and so the committee, the Friends of Wiswall, continues to pursue that option and see if it's possible. So thanks for everyone for working on that. Friends of Wiswall has some official officers. Judy Esposito is the chair, Caitlin Parwana is the vice chair, Chris Dubuque is treasurer, and Ann Mullins is the recording secretary. So that might be I think that's it.
Just one thing, Friends of Wiswall is looking at becoming a 501c3.
Right.
That's why they named their
Right.
positions. Liaison report, the big news for the library is they're applying for a grant. Wait, for that motion, to come up for them to describe more, how much the grant's for and what it covers some of the improvements that were done, proposed by the architect. Good source of funding through the Solomon grant. Let me see. I'll wait till grant updates to talk about the urban forestry and inventory management grant. I'll put an update on how that's wrapping up. I think that's about it.
Justin, you can tell you're pretty busy. As a matter of fact, you sent me a text with a whole laundry list of things. So here we go. Leaf pickup actually started today. We actually got the back truck out, and they're going to run till right after Thanksgiving. At that point, they're probably going to be done because they're still on the ground. But they're also going to do brush pickup probably by the end of this week or early next. Then they're also planning on finishing all the striping and painting associated with paving this week too, so. That's a big one. And he figures that, you know, there's only a few more days to finish the thing, but that's what we're doing today.
Thank you, everybody. I'll be your fill-in treasurer tonight for treasurer's report. Let's, in all seriousness though, talk about where we have been and where we are now and where we're going with respect to treasurer. One of the things that flagged me pretty interestingly about a week and a half ago, right after Julia left, was that we got a notice that we were late on filing our AUD, and trying to track that back as to what's going on with that with EFPR, who's our outside accountants, and you know, throwing Don Traver into the lion's den here. We're trying to make sure that he can accommodate payroll, et cetera, because we've also noticed that we had some consistent payroll glitches going on with our ADP workforce account, and things where we've had to actually issue side checks to complete people's pay in certain weeks or roll over the hours, which is not the way you want to be accounting for, and it's a time-consuming process. So we've got a lot of interesting landmines that have sort of just all coalesced as Julia and Denise exited here. So we had to talk, you know, heart to heart per se with EFPR and Bob Fox, who's our main person there, and Tina, whose last name I'm not going to remember off the top of my head here, Tina Denigro, over at EFPR. And they shared the same concerns I did initially, because I thought I was going to end up having a fight with them, but instead we actually had a very good conversation about the realities here. Reality number one is that we made one person in our office indispensable to a degree that we are now sort of chasing our tail and trying to get ourselves back together again. And for a mayor that's been in for about 6-7 months here, and the system being in place for years, it's always been tough to try to impose certain changes on the fly, because I'm always being told this is the way we do things. But EFPR and I both have this feeling at this point, and let's call it more than just a feeling, but something that is a reality, that our system is not exactly built for new people to come into and learn in order to take over in the process. And that's a problem, because we were lucky to have a certain amount of continuity with our personnel for X number of years, and we will not always have that luxury, especially in that role. So EFPR's first issue for us is that we are using Edmunds for not just our water and our taxes, which they have no problem with, because at the end of the day, we can use those pieces of software that we already own to essentially create journal entries for another accounting software if need be. So we can still use those and keep our histories in place, because we often will pull our histories for water or sewer bills and usage and whatnot off that system. That's one of the most regular things we do across the board in the office. They refuse to support us any longer if we continue to use Edmunds as our accounting software. Bob Fox has been chasing about a $96,000 or $98,000 issue from Edmunds that's been mischaracterized somehow inside the software, and can't figure out where to attribute it to or how to exactly determine the source of the issue. And it basically comes down to Edmunds for them is not something they are willing to support because of these glitches that they've been experiencing, not just with us, but with others. They want to actually put us onto their cloud-based accounting system, and the name of that is AccuFund. And I'll read you their paragraph here. While we are familiar with many software systems, we intend to use AccuFund for a variety of reasons. One, there are no software costs for the village. Two, AccuFund meets New York State OSC requirements for accounting and reporting. Three, we provide user access via the internet to key village officials, which provides transparency and increased control to the village. Four, AccuFund can be used to create vouchers and abstracts. They also have the ability to use ADP Run, which is different from ADP Workforce. We pay about $10,000 a year to ADP based on a sampling I got from Terry, actually, who pulled it from me the other day. Thank you for that. To see what our cost was for ADP. So about $10,000 there. The new treasurer position is about a $5,000 drop compared to what Julie was making. We're starting somebody obviously a little bit lower because of the relative lack of experience, being new here. So we have about $15,000 if we were to hand over the payroll system to EFPR. That doesn't mean we don't do our own hour entry, spreadsheeting for it, et cetera. It means that they're going to do the processing, the tax issues that go with it, et cetera, and have the responsibility to make the changes on the fly for things that are wrong with it, which is bogging down our office at this point because of issues like Columbus Day wasn't flagged correctly as a holiday for certain departments, et cetera. And that can come back to bite you as it did in our case. They also use Microsoft Teams to do training and on-the-fly questions and answers. And so they are very, very interested in trying to help us if we make that switch to AccuFund, to training our new treasurer and anybody else that needs the training in the office on AccuFund. They are pricing it as a not to exceed $9,000 over 3 months, dedicating 20 hours of partner services to the treasurer, whomever, for those 3 months. The other thing that's been flagged is that they haven't really boosted the payments we've been making each month for some period of time. We are currently at around, I think it was $28,000 a year billed monthly. And that breaks down to around, give or take, $2,200 a month. With the payroll services added and the AccuFund abilities, et cetera, they're looking to increase that to $3,600 a month. And also a $1,500 one-time initial accounting data conversion. So the timing of this becomes important because I sent around, or actually Jennifer did, a resume of somebody that we interviewed. We'd gotten 13, I think it was, resumes, Jennifer. Some of which were out of county, which is actually not allowed for this position in Village of Ballston Spa. Different jurisdictions or different municipalities have different rules on that. We have retained the in Saratoga County rule. Some didn't have the skill set necessary at all that we could identify. So we interviewed 2. Both were very good, but one had what I would call municipal experience, which I think we all place a big value in. And some deputy treasurer experience in one of the municipalities she worked with. As mayor, I do have the ability to appoint in this situation because it is an interim appointment. Trustee Cormos on Friday had discussed the idea of involvement of the board, so I would send that resume around. We have not offered a position yet. I heard nothing except for Trustee Fondenza with respect to the resume over the weekend and into today, which I am disappointed about because this is way too important of a decision to just sit back and relax on, as you can see. So if anybody would like to give me some on-the-fly back and forth on this, I'm happy to hear it, but I wish it was about 3 days earlier that we heard it, so that maybe we could have made the decision today to make that call and say congratulations to the person, or say we're not interested. If you could have talked me out of the person that I'm interested in hiring and or appointing into this position. So I open the floor to everybody that wants to say something. Go right ahead. Not everybody at once now.
I'll just reiterate what I said the other day. I think it's really helpful that this applicant has a municipal experience. There's like a large learning curve, so I think it's a good thing that we received that. And thank you, Jennifer, for helping that too.
I mean, the way I look at it, whoever it is has enormous shoes to fill. So the idea of finding somebody who could replace Julia, that's just not going to happen. So, I mean, from what I saw, it just seemed like she had basic qualifications. So, I don't really have particular opinion.
As far as municipal experience with accounting systems? What accounting systems has she worked with?
It was not Edmonds. I know that for a fact because we asked that. Jennifer, did you?
I don't remember off the top of my head.
It's
It was a
just-
question we asked and we talked about, but I didn't commit.
Yeah,
to
which
memory.
system and who she work with as far as accounting firms, et cetera. Yeah, I'd be interested in, you know, as we discussed over email, as far as the issue of changing accounting systems. I think that the new treasurer, if this woman becomes our new treasurer, should be involved in that decision. So bring her on, let her, you know, look at, you know, the system that's being proposed, look at alternatives, look at keeping Edmonds possibly. I mean, we went through a pretty long process when Larry took office and Mary Lasky was working, you know, because there was a question, should we leave Edmonds? And we talked to other municipalities, et cetera, and decided to stay with Edmonds. So I'd like to see the village, you know, take that kind of process. Yeah, it might delay for a few weeks before we get a new system, but I feel a lot more comfortable approving the system that had been vetted and that the new treasurer felt was the best system as well.
We have nobody to train around the insurance system, and that's a reality check for you right now. Even Don is not comfortable with doing that. He's fine with the water and especially Bob having the knowledge there too, and the tax situation. But when it's coming to vouchers and the stuff that is more into the accounting end of Edmonds, it is a problem. And even EFPR is citing that. And after our back and forth via email, I looked back at some old emails because I have the old email account for the legacy emails from it. And Mary Lasky actually was the proponent of getting EFPR signed on back when in 2020. And I will underscore that this is EFPR telling us we are kind of down the creek without an oar right now with respect to our current accounting system. They will not support it, period, on the exclamation point, because they don't have, I think, anybody they had there. They have maybe one person left that has any experience with Edmonds because it's becoming phased out in this respect.
It's an archaic software.
Yeah.
And it's, like many things, I mean, there's a couple of my own personal experience at my work. There's a couple of software rolled out that for the life of me, they don't make life easier. I'm not sure why, but because previous software simply aren't being supported, there isn't enough people to figure out when something goes wrong, and then eventually these things fade out.
And the advantage here is that they can actively log into the system and fix issues on the fly. One of the things that the applicant was saying a few times, if I remember, is she's a good learner and willing to learn anything. She would just appreciate good training ultimately, so that when she has questions, she'll be able to bounce those questions off. And that's the feedback we've gotten from others, that she is a good learner. It's just a question of, making sure we're setting her up for success ultimately on this stuff as well.
This AccuFund, is that a municipal type accounting system, or is that their?
It is.
overall?
It is, I believe, geared toward municipal in terms of the configuration they are using, yes.
I still would like the new person to be involved in that decision. I think that would be, that the treasurer is going to be living with the system. She's got to be comfortable with the choice.
Ben, you can quote.
Yeah, I guess I don't feel comfortable. I'm sorry I didn't email you back. I didn't see the email, but I don't feel comfortable like talking about a specific person. But
That's why names haven't been named.
so her work experience is certainly relevant. Her formal training that I'm talking about is the person, but isn't exactly accounting, but she does have good experience. In general, I think we should try to avoid that we have to do this now way of operating. I mean, can we, it sounds like the best thing since sliced bread. We don't know what the drawbacks are or what else the alternatives are. Can we do some due diligence and research between now and the next meeting? Just to get that, this is such a big decision.
I won't let this go 3 weeks. I will call a special meeting at the end of this week. If you want some diligence, then tell me what questions you want answered ultimately, and I will get those answers for you. I'm willing to have a, Friday or Thursday, pricing tough on this end, but Thursday even meeting while we get the answers you're looking for, or even next Monday of some sort. We cannot use Zoom, I believe. So it would have to be in person, at least 3 of us showing up, and that may be a challenge, but if we can reach a consensus on discussion points behind the scenes, at least we could make a vote occur and just be transparent to the public with what we choose to do.
Is this the only accounting system they use?
This is the most favored supported one. It sounds like it's the only one they're willing to support right now if we make a swap, because I think 2 things have caught us here. Number one, they feel that they've been undercharging us. Number 2, they feel that the stuff we've been using with respect to Edmunds has created even more of a problem for them in terms of hours and chasing things down to the degree that we're late on an AUD because of it, because he can't find the $96,000 or $98,000 genesis of the issues, genesis basically. And he sounds like he's been chasing it down left, right, and center and trying to work with Julie to figure it out as well, even offline with her not here anymore.
I mean, so what are the reviews of the system? Is there a whole bunch of negative reviews that we don't know about?
Why don't you folks all send me your questions on it by email over the next 24 hours? I still want to talk to Bob about a couple of things with this. There's some things that I'm questioning with exactly how he's worded a couple of things here. I just also want to compare the hourly rates that he's got listed. So if you give me that chance and opportunity to do that, I'll also have your questions along the side of it, and we can make a decision at that point. In the meantime, I'm going to move forward with making the appointment, and we'll name names, I guess, after we see if they accept the position officially. So we'll keep it at that at this point.
Well, as far as, the signing, hiring, yes, but I think on one question I would have on this accounting system is that EFPR system, so that if we ever decide to change accounting firms, we got to change accounting systems. That's one question. And I'd like to hear some other people who are using it, saying its praises, frankly. I mean, it's one thing for the company trying to, sell you on a product, but I always go to, give me a list of folks who use this system and talk to them.
It's not quite selling us because there's no cost to us per se. The only extra costs really are coming in to the idea of increasing what we're paying monthly plus ADP usage on their end.
Well, that increase is pretty significant from 27,000 to 43,000. So
correct, but we've got 15,000 to play with. Don't forget this. The only excess money is 9,000 for training and 1,500 for the initial. Go ahead.
I'm saying the cost is going up by a large amount. Whether we have the money or not is beside the point. What it costs.
Right, they're adopting payroll though, don't forget, which is a $10,000 cost to us normally right now.
Right, that's what I was gonna, it's unusual for ADP not to cost us anything, so they're just wrapping it into this other fee.
They, because of their quantity of clients they work with, they get a different pricing on ADP as well. So that's kind of what's going into it. They wouldn't try that transition until the first of the year, which makes sense because of the way taxes work and reporting works on salaries. But they also would begin to do a redundancy, I believe, to make sure that we were ready to go for January 1st takeover on that.
I have, questions like transitioning from one accounting system to the other doesn't happen, flip the switch. That's quite a process and how long that would take. And, so there's a number of questions that I think need to be answered before we make such a large decision.
Please submit those questions via email by tomorrow at 5 o'clock, and I will endeavor to get the answers so that Monday we have.
I'm unfortunately not going to be in town tomorrow. I think a 24-hour request is a little bit.
Well, let's make this a quick meeting and you'll have some time tonight. How's that?
What is the emergency? I guess one question I have is if you appoint this person, does she need to be approved by us before she starts?
Yeah. So one of the things we talked about, her current place of employment, she does need to go in a couple of Wednesdays or a few Wednesdays because the person that she's working with is got disability currently, she's out on, but she thinks on the flip side, we can get her in to start training earlier than the 2-week notice period as well. So that means that we'll have the opportunity to get her in a position to begin this
But
process.
she has a full-time job now.
Correct.
So she needs to get 2 weeks notice.
Right, but I think the thing she flagged as needed, but she wants to work with us to get in early if possible, is just give me Wednesdays to do the payroll over there. And I'll happily come in and start this transition process or, learning process on this, so.
Yeah, I have no problem with her starting immediately. I just have a problem with us jumping to a whole new accounting system without any due diligence.
Well, like I said, we will get to the diligence to the degree you've got questions,
Yeah.
send them via
I
carrier
think
pigeon.
EFPR offers a couple, handful of clients that they use, and that would be fine to
Absolutely.
find out, testimonials from them or reach out to them, and then,
And just in transparency here, I was trying to get this done Friday morning if I could, this proposal, and I had to chase it down for this afternoon. That's why I had to spread it a little bit. I didn't know what they were gonna put in this, and I didn't want to start something that changed overnight, so apologies.
yeah, and I understand the sense of urgency, because it took a long time to get the books in order, and we don't want to let them languish and become less in order. So, I see the importance of it. It is a significant increase. I guess the only thing I would also ask is if a potential candidate ever heard or used. I don't know if that question's ever been asked.
We didn't know exactly the name at that point, so we couldn't ask that question specifically, but well, I'll ask. One thing I did do was I have asked Don to try to stay on for about a month transition period to sort of create the safety net, especially with payroll and entry stuff that we have for both positions to help out there. Because Don is very good and is being underpaid in this whole scenario based on his needs not to exceed certain things. So I really appreciate what he's doing for us, but he is also not going to learn this entire financial system in a matter of weeks, but he can at least do certain functions that are very important for us right now to get our payroll, for instance, back into the correct spot with, he's been on the phone with ADP, their workforce for like the last 2 days to try to get some things fixed on this whole thing. So I do appreciate what he's been doing for us.
So I think, if we could have till next week and then, because you're gonna make phone calls, people aren't gonna return your phone call the same day, it's.
I'm fine with a Monday special meeting. If that's what we do. And that will give you enough
Let me,
time.
I'll officially call tomorrow, worst case Wednesday, once we just see where we're going with certain information. I will make the appointment though in the meantime and ask for if she's okay coming on still. And I'll let you know on that part as well once we're there. Okay. No presentations. I don't know what to do. Old business grant updates, Trustee Corr, let's go ahead.
Yes, first of all, the park and tree board, the urban forestry inventory and management grant is almost complete, and with the mailing of the tree guide, don't know, Terry, when is that gonna go out, or when is that gonna go out? We approved that, the tree guide, we mailed out to everybody. Have we?
We have not made it.
Mailing, other than approval, we haven't.
Okay, so we need that, we need to launch that.
Yep.
And then, in talking with DEC, they have authorized us to purchase the license for 2 years for a software package that we can incorporate the data from the tree surveys, all that data about every public tree, and put it in a user friendly form. And they've also authorized us to purchase a tablet, which either Park and Tree could use with the forestry plan, or DPW could use.
You
So
owe Jennifer an answer though on whether or not it needs active data or if Wi-Fi is sufficient on that tablet, because that makes a big difference in terms of monthly costs and which one you buy for that matter.
Right, So I'll get that to her. The DEC was very impressed with the tree guide and has actually asked us if they can share it with other municipalities. So I'd like to congratulate the Park and Tree Board for an excellent job on, fulfilling this grant and all the requirements. The DEC representative Michelle Higgins also informed me that in the first part of 2023, there'll be more money. So we will be able to apply, I think the grants go up to 75,000 to either take out trees that need to be taken out, grind stumps, plant new trees, buy trees, and even buy equipment that DPW may need to help maintain our urban forests. That's about it for that. The other thing on grants, which I have a question is where are we with the bowling?
I am awaiting a little bit on your board right now to take the next steps because it is a good tandem approach if we can get to that point. But obviously, I would expect an answer from your board in the next 2 to 3 weeks, and then also move forward. There's a committee that's going to have to be formed there. So
Yeah, because we got
motion N.
we were awarded the grant almost a year ago, and the contract was signed in May, and the last we heard was in June. And they do have, this is the packet of everything you have to deliver on a BOA grant. The first step, project planning meeting happened, but the second step, establishing a steering committee and then going out with an RFP for consultants, because it's another.
That's actually what we were trying to work on with respect to the problem ultimately becomes that you don't want to eat up this entire grant with the cost for consultants, because that is very possible to happen with the value of it. And also the RFP process, there's a question as to whether we can use ours or we have to use theirs, and exactly what it all means at the end of the day. They owed me a call back a few weeks ago that didn't actually set it up in the end. I think some of the same people that are handling near forward are on the BOA side as well. And I think that's what's happening, that they've gotten inundated with these other duties, and that's why they aren't exactly being responsive either. But we didn't get a countersign execution until I believe July on this either. So
Yeah.
we still have time.
But there's a project status report due at the end of the year. Have you gotten some indication that there's going to be announcements on New York Forward before then?
Yes, that's the wide belief, is that this was set up to be an election approach, and this is why they just did all their interviews / visits over the last couple of weeks.
So they're going to make an announcement
We hope
before
so.
the end of the year.
That would make no sense if they weren't, because their timing is to get us a consultant named early next year. So that means that the decision would have to be made before that, obviously. Sure.
Yeah, I'd like to, I don't want to put us in the position of losing $170,000.
No, we're in communication with them, so we're not in that position in any way, shape, or form. Like I said, they owed me the call and they actually didn't set it up. So I think it was their oversight.
Another topic is under new business, and I'll wait till we get that.
One thing about Park and Tree Board, and Ben, you'd asked me about this by email, never got back to you. I apologize. I've been playing phone tag with Mike Tower just to touch base with him on what the next steps should be in his mind, as somebody that was the chair of that for a decent period of time. So when I do talk to him, I'll move forward with an approach that will be based at least in large part based on his recommendations.
Okay, great, thanks. I just wondering, Jen, do you need anything else from us to do this letter, or are we all set? To mail this letter that we voted on to.
I'll get back.
So there's,
Let me take a look
there's
and see what
two
it is.
mailings you're talking about. One is the tree guide, which is going to everybody.
Yeah, that's what I'm talking about.
Oh,
Yeah, that's what, yeah.
I've got an idea. Is there any preclusion in the tree guide rules that we can't use the same envelope to put the newsletter in?
No, I don't think there's any. They
Why
both-
don't we check on that? Because we don't want somebody calling us out that we,
No, no, we use both.
yes.
No, it could be, think though with the amount of paper, it might be a higher rate, but.
Yeah, it might be more.
Well, we'll check the two things then. Number one, if it affects postage at all. Number two, if it's allowed even, because
No, I don't see any reason why it can't go out with a
I,
newsletter.
I appreciate
not-
that, but we gotta ask the people to actually, yeah, give us the money, so don't call us out for it later.
Yeah, I mean, I can check with DC, but I don't think they'll have.
Village Hall repairs, Trustee Ring.
Yeah, you know, this is an ongoing issue with, we've identified a couple of things that probably should be attended to sooner rather than later. One of the vaults, the other one is the sidewalk at Village Hall, the other being the retaining wall alongside it. I was just wondering, you know, what are the status, and now that we've kind of cleared things up with Labella, you know, is this the opportunity to move forward and maybe have them remodify those bids and put them out and see what.
One of the warnings we got on our walk last Monday, if you want to restate it, about starting projects prematurely that you may list in your.
Yeah, I would recommend maybe waiting till we hear what is happening with New York Ford, because they have it's a little frustrating. They're a little tongue in cheek. They kind of can't tell us things, but still tell us things. And what I gathered from them is that they would like us to not move forward quite yet with stuff until, if we were to receive the funding, until we get their guidance to you to get, like, it's kind of frustrating. But would you be willing to wait until we see? I mean, I think we can pause and.
Again, this waited a while anyways. I mean,
Okay.
I'm just wondering.
Well, one thing I actually liked about going as far as you did with the discussion on Front Street is, one of the things we need to do is find where those coils exactly are under the sidewalk, because it's going to be precluding us possibly from digging underneath and filling to the top with the vault if we can't get through. And so there may be the ability to actually see exactly where they are, where we may have a point to actually go through and do the filling.
No, that's a good point.
So I would like to see that actually happen, and we'll make sure we flag that to Joe and his guys on that one, his subcontractors.
So essentially, we want to see the outcome of the move forward.
That's fine.
Oh,
Oh, sorry.
Good. I just wondering, did the airport include that kind of infrastructure repair?
Well, it's gonna, basically what we're gonna be able to say is, if it doesn't, that we're putting a contribution toward it in real time with them, and so that's important to them. One of the things which was interesting was that they admit they have nothing to go by but DRI, and DRI was $9.7 million to cities especially. And on average, the total amount of stuff done, when you add their contribution and the city's contribution, was $80 million. So if you use that ratio, it's wild. And they know darn well you can't use that same ratio with the $2.25 million, because municipalities like ours aren't going to be spending $20 million or $18 million to get to 20 to do it. So there's some ratio they're going to expect. It's just not going to be the outlandish DRI one, because we're not a city with that level of budget and infrastructure and ability and all that stuff. So they are definitely strangers to this as much as we are, but they're using some tried and true ideas of, don't start a project, because if you start a project, you're saying basically you don't need us for that project. And that's a trap.
I thought our application precluded these kinds of repairs, the vault and the retaining wall, and so if we work on those, it wouldn't be part of the project.
No, in fact, we showed them that stuff. Well, we showed the wall at least, and point out the vault, and they didn't say anything to that effect.
What's precluded is like street infrastructure, that wouldn't be allowed as well. So, but our building,
We wouldn't allow,
like streetscaping, but like, I don't.
Pipes under it, the black
Yeah,
top.
like,
No,
like,
yeah.
for lack of better word.
I'm just, well, I guess we can wait to hear, but even though, from what I understand of the process, they work with you, it's
Yeah.
gonna be a long time before you see a check to say, we can fix this
Well,
now.
well, the answer is no. We know the answer right away, and we have to go with it. And plus, like I said, we were going to wait a little bit here to probably get this $29,000 study done of what's underneath the roads to make sure we're in the right spots in the different bunch of different places.
I agree with you, we should see what the results of that are.
Thanks.
I think we're moving in direction toward.
Water infrastructure study. Let me I'll tell you one thing today. It was kind of funny. Dish Network sent us a pre-installation letter, and I basically said to them, "Don't do it."
Yeah.
And I'm going to talk to them tomorrow because while we did include in the contract the idea of not putting the equipment up, or that the equipment would have to be removed possibly off the tower onto a monopole, we know now that the equipment that's on the tower at John Street is creating issues with the condition of the tower. So AT&T, I reached out to do a renewal. I am working through their bureaucratic red tape of whatever email that was generated from to get somebody actually acknowledged it and asked me some questions, and they haven't gotten back to me again, but I'll follow up with them. Dish Network isn't even on there yet, and I don't feel right in putting them on there and then saying, hey, you got to come down 5 months later and take it off now, because we know this issue exists, but also to start getting a monopole strategy next to the tower as to who's going to pay for it and how ultimately get the stuff off the tower to stop deteriorating it. It's one of the big things that was a Don Rhodes question that we're trying to actively figure out what else is up there, because what we see in the paperwork versus what the reality is seem to be two different things, unfortunately.
Well, I guess pursuant to that, I was just curious as to where we stood. I know one phase in scope of that particular water study was once we received the current assessment, that we would do an analysis of the John Street Tower and do at least one, if not two alternatives regarding whether we use a glass line or if, finding another location so that we don't have to stop operation. Those were the types of things that they were going to analyze. And since, they were contracted in February, so what has it been, 9 months, and I've seen nothing of significance. I'm just wondering where that stands.
They're also waiting for us to a certain degree. And so I think one of the questions that's still out there is, do we want to do we didn't use all the money that was budgeted for tower assessments. We probably still have about 4,000, I think. And the question is, do we want to send somebody in, basically drain the tower, which we've done before. It's not unusual to do that, drain the tower to do a full internal assessment of the tower, because one of the things that I think Bernadette had pointed out from the report was we can't really tell what the thickness is or what the paint condition is to see if we can use essentially the adhering method of painting, which would be a lot cheaper than all the other alternatives out there, which would require either full sandblast down to the bare metal to repaint, etc.
I understand that, but this is even more of a 10,000-foot approach. Are we even going to try to paint it and maybe a replacement with a glass line as a better benefit cost ratio over the estimated lifespan? That was the kind of thing that they were supposed to be providing us, and I haven't seen anything. And since the assessment has been done for some time, I'm just wondering what their progress is.
We've been asking this over and over again. I think we need to see that assessment.
Okay, well, you contract them. You want to call it down, feel free.
Well, I know the money was $30,000 was a lot.
I don't think we paid all that. I just put in one voucher, I think total on that.
All right, so you want Sean to call Don?
I'm happily, yeah. He's actually wanted to actually talk with all of you, so I was surprised that he hasn't reached out to you individually at this point.
He did a while ago.
Hopefully,
But I would echo that. I would also like to see some analysis of, do we paint? Do we get a glass tower? Do we move the tower? Although that's a whole other analysis, but at least the first
Moves about a $10 million analysis from what I understand.
a 10 million analysis.
And no, the answer, how's that on the analysis? Sorry.
well, that was, from what we understood, that would be primarily benefiting our village users.
There's not enough out of village users to add to it because town of Ballston is not interested in it to that
Yeah.
degree, et cetera. So
But that
it
alternative,
would cost us a grand line share of the $10 million is what they landed on with that. I can tell you that for sure. So the question is replace, go down to the bare metal and paint, or paint with the ability to use an adhering method inside.
Or glass.
Could they do
Well, the glass is a new tower,
new tower, glass?
That's what you're saying, 10 million or?
you know,
No,
that's
that's a
replaced, that's
Yeah,
replaced.
I mean, I would think they could tell us what each of those cost without knowing
Yeah.
whether we need.
Right, but he's not sure what the paint approach will cost you ultimately, in terms of, we don't know which method is going to be
So
required.
it needs further assessment to give a determination on what the overall.
You can get that from them. That is,
Call me if you want, it's tomorrow, or Wednesday, we can call together if you wanted to, we're allowed to do that, so no problem doing that. Back to trustee Cormo, CDTC UPWP green, there we go.
okay.
Oh, I'm sorry, just for the water infrastructure.
Yeah.
Do we need a motion to accept this proposal for the first phase of the water sewer study, 30,000? Do we
Do
need?
you want to go there? We
Or
would.
we're just gonna do it?
Well, no, we would need, I didn't know if you wanted to, I had heard nothing except from Sean, to be honest with you about that, so I didn't know if you wanted to progress with it today. If you want to progress with it, I'm happy to
Yeah.
say not to exceed 29,000. Is that where we want to go with it?
Yeah, I'm ready to, I'd like to move forward.
Okay, that's fine. I believe 29, but I will check right now. We can do it not to exceed 30 out of safety if you want, but I think we have the number.
One consideration, they're concluding Wiswall Park, but I'm wondering if in their exploration, they find that some of the problems are further up. I mean, will they include that part of Loud Street? And what about further up if the issues are, you know,
Well, include whatever we want, the price just.
no, I mean,
Really?
no,
It is
without
basically,
knowing where the issues are as they do their exploration, if they come back to us and say, you know, the problems are really up at the top of Loud Street.
I think it's all contingent. They're gonna see what they see and then they'll tell us based on what they see.
I mean, it's just the show here. It's basically, here's Front Street, here's Wiswall Park. It's basically got the street and the alley
Okay,
basically.
so it's got the
contained in it.
first part of the
Yeah.
street, but I'm just concerned since their assessment isn't going to include stormwater, and stormwater on Loud Street is a big issue, so that's why.
Well, any repavement we do is addresses stormwater management. for
Yeah, it's
sure.
all utility.
Yeah,
Okay, all right,
so that's why I was in there, with that drawing, I'm giving you a price, estimated professional services fee 29,000, since it's estimated, we should do it not to exceed 30, just out of safety.
just add that as a motion.
Let's do it now, don't forget, out of safety here, can I get a motion to accept the survey proposal of Labella Engineering related to Front Street in Wiswall Park, topographic and right-of-way survey and subsurface utility location dated October 19th, 2022. The price is not to exceed $30,000, and the mayor may execute any documentation related to this proposal.
I'll make the motion.
Second,
Corvus, seconded, Raymond on the making of it. Discussion? Wow. Be that way. Because it is an out of order motion, we will open up to public comment. Anybody want to comment on this? Okay, thank you. Anybody on Zoom?
okay.
All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. UPWP, got it.
Capital District Transportation just issued a call for local and regional transportation planning initiatives for inclusion in their 2023 to 24 Unified Planning Work Program. This is federal transportation money that can be used for a number of items. They're getting a total of $1 million here in the capital region. It can be used for regional planning, infrastructure, safety, primarily related to transportation, complete streets, bicycle, pedestrian, transit, freight, environmental stewardship, transportation related technology. What caught my eye is under quality regional planning. It includes land use and transportation plans, public participation initiatives, and zoning code and design guideline updates. In other words, they're giving money to help us with zoning. And since we are wrapping up the comprehensive plan in the next couple of months, the timing seems good that maybe we should apply for this grant. And
What's the due date and what's the chance for or timing for reward or whatever?
yeah, the due date is November 30th, and they will be, starting the program in early spring. And there's 3 levels, the small scale, which actually we're the ADA grant is sort of part of that, is up to 25,000. But this middle plant is 20,000 to 150 maximum. And they are looking for a dollar match and in-kind match, but we have, I believe, $30,000 allocated for zoning.
16, so did we put 16 in?
No, it's at 30.
Was it 30?
Only 30, which won't really buy us that much. Their grant, I did discuss this a little bit with them to say, do you think we would be a candidate for this grant? And they said, definitely, we would, based on, where we are with the comprehensive plan. The grant wouldn't cover the seeker type part of the zoning, but, we've got $30,000 we can put towards the things they won't. But they would, work with us.
Will they consider that match even though they wouldn't cover it normally?
Not the seeker stuff, but
So the 30,000 would be,
no,
No.
I mean, we would probably end up putting in 10, 20 as a match to theirs, which is pretty generous. If we are interested in moving forward with this, I'll meet with them and get an idea of what the amount is that we should apply for. There'll be an RFP process. It'll be very similar to what we did with the transportation grant. But I think it's a unique opportunity for us to get some extra money to do the zoning process. And, so I'd like to move forward if the board agrees in doing an application. And of course, I'll share it with the board and, before the deadline.
search committee?
I don't know if there is. I haven't looked at the application in detail. I'll let you know.
Could you pass the application around via email? I think you have a consensus of, I think we're all great with, filing for a grant, but it's just a question of seeing it for ourselves.
Right. Well, actually, the application itself is online.
Just send us a link, we can look through it.
Yeah. No,
No problem.
it's because they do everything through online application. That's why I usually copy it into a Word format so I can work on it and pass it around before it goes online.
Sounds good to me, from what I know.
Just circulate the link and we'll be good to go on that. Okay, public comment number 1, 3 minutes per speaker on any subject whatsoever. Anybody in the audience? Anybody on Zoom?
No.
We need to add one motion, I should state, and this was an oversight that was profusely apologized for, except for the fact that Gina Morosi's late in her 3 minutes, but go ahead.
She was first.
Okay.
Oh.
You have a line 1, 2, 3. Michelle, you can see her hand.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Michelle.
Hi, Michelle Beshard, working Bath Street. Liz, could you just explain to me a little bit more about what the grant from the Catholic District Transit would do for us? I have a lot of, there's a lot of things I would like to see done. It may not entail the village in particular, the corridor from Route 9, to 50 would be super helpful. And I don't think that involves us, but I'd like to know what this grant would do for the village. And as far as the transportation,
Well, this grant is strictly for, what we would apply for is strictly for helping us with the zoning and providing us professionals. This is not a regional plan. I mean, one of the things that can be done is working with other communities such as Malta and Ballston and so on, and applying for a big regional program. But I don't think in a month and a half, we've got enough time to put that together.
Just wanted to know.
But they do provide, you know, grant money to do. They did the Route 67 study, which unfortunately it stopped at the village line. This was many years ago, where, you know, they were planning how there might be a roundabout at East Line and all that, but they stopped at the village line.
They've gotten really far with that roundabout at East Line.
May
No.
happen someday.
Yeah, somebody's got to come up with the money for. Michelle, if you, after she sends the link, if you want us to send you the link just so you can read up on it, I'm happy to send it to you.
If it's posted on.
Yeah, it's on CDBC, so I'll send the link
Thank you.
out.
Just wanted to clarify.
Now, Gina,
Great.
now Ray,
Oh, I got this?
Yeah.
Okay. Just a show of
name
hands.
and address.
Oh, Ray Otten, 16 Middlebrook Avenue, Ballston, County. Show of hands if I could get it. A few weeks ago, I talked about the FEMA training, and I was wondering how many of the folks on our board have now gone through that.
Have not yet, but Carla has provided us more information on it. Go ahead, Carla.
Yeah, I actually spoke with, I was at NICOM and I spoke with the individual who wrote a lot of those, Harry. Can't remember Harry's last name right now, but he's giving me all sorts of information, and he actually knew your name. So
Uh-oh.
he's like, "What, did Ray bring that up?" I said, "Actually, it was Ray." So he's gonna get me all sorts of information for that, and I've told these folks about that, and so we're in the process of doing it.
What brought that up to mind tonight was today on Larry Phillips' column, Old Time Ballston Style, whatever it is. He showed the pictures of the floods from 1936 that had about 4 foot of water going down Milton Avenue. And this whole area here, and it is a floodplain, so that's just one of the things that I thought I would be asked about it because I want to make sure that we're covered. Okay, thank you.
Thanks, Ray.
Second thing, I want to thank the DPW for the fantastic job they did on Middlebrook Avenue. They paved that sucker, and the next day it rained and the water was going right down to Milton Avenue, which is great. It doesn't pool in front of my house anymore. It was great. So they did a great job on that, and I want to thank them for doing that. In conjunction with that, I've talked before about the western end of Middlebrook Avenue. If they need to get a fire truck up through there, there's going to be a problem. They cannot make that turn because people park behind the big building next to the parking lot, and it leaves about a lane big enough for a pickup truck maybe. And then you go around the corner, and the house on the corner has a parking spot where the guy is pulled up almost to the porch and the back end still sticking out in the street. I'll be more than happy to submit pictures. I'll send them to you. You can see them. I'm just recommending that we don't allow parking from the last house around the corner. It's going to be a problem if they get a fire truck up in there. And I'm sure the fire folks, your fire folks, that corner is bad enough to me. And then if there's cars parked there, you're not going to get through. So just a note. Who determines where the bus stops are in Ballston stop?
School district.
No, the CDTA bus.
Oh, those.
CDBC.
Yeah, CDTC.
Okay, why do we have
CDTA.
bus stops in the middle of the busiest intersection in town and the bus never pulls over? I did a study. I followed them 3 or 4 days last week. Just happened to be behind buses. And they stopped there and they blocked the traffic. They never pull over.
The 2 to 3 light cycles that it takes up.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and they have one in front of the church, and there's one on the other side of Milton Avenue there. They have one at the top of the hill up here. And why can't they eliminate that one on Milton Avenue?
What do you mean eliminate
Eliminate the
the
bus stop.
stop? That's the most frequented bus stop on the whole route.
Okay, so they walk a block and a half down, or they walk a block and a half up, and they get their bus. If the buses can't pull over, why do they have a bus stop there?
Is it that they can't pull over or they don't? Or
Yes,
they can't?
not if there's cars there.
Well, then
Yeah.
maybe it's,
That's a parking restriction issue then.
Right, but if they didn't have the bus stops there, they would add a couple of parking spots on either side of the road, which is what we need. And the inconvenience of 3 or 4 people, or 5 people, 6 people a day, that would only have to walk another block and a half either way. I think it should be looked at. It needs to be looked at, because it's blocking traffic up horribly.
yeah,
Okay, it
I
just
mean-
needs to be looked at.
yeah, you can write or email,
No, I'm asking you guys.
you want
I
us
don't
to
have
do it.
anything to do with buses.
Ray,
I'm
if
just
you,
asking you guys.
Ray, if you remind me next time I talk to you, probably later this week, in case I don't get to it this
Yeah.
week, I will happily reach out.
Thank you. I appreciate
You
it.
got it.
And lastly, it's a little bit distracting to me and a number of others that have commented about using electronics while you guys are listening to us. Okay, and even others. You're getting text messages. You're sharing with each other. It's like, the old grade school thing, passing a note in class. I noticed, Sean, I noticed, Bernadette, everybody else seems to write notes, which is great. But why do we need electronics up there? You're not paying attention to what we're saying. You're looking at the electronics. And I know then you said, well, I'm taking notes. Well, take them on a pad so that we know we have your attention. I understand you need it, okay? I 100% behind it. Okay, but I don't think we need everybody answering their phone and sending texts and things like that. Just a thought. And thank you for that.
Thank you. Next. Gina?
Gina Morosi, 10 Old Glory Lane.
No,
Don't start the clock till I start. Good evening. I am before you to speak about the events group in the non-for-profit ASCC. After the last meeting, in the 45-minute discussion about what amounted to a handful, yes, a handful, it was not birdhouse Armageddon, as we were led to believe, of birdhouses that were damaged on the Tedesco Trail, we feel the need to address the prejudicial manner in which our group is treated versus treatment of other groups in the village that they receive. The following is a sampling of this treatment. From day one of the planning of Family Fun Day, it began. We were required to provide the village with the unprecedented act of a matching fund. No group, organization, or not-for-profit has ever had to do this to receive funding from the village board, ever. Our fundraising and the way we thank our generous donors has been criticized and attacked. In fact, our thank you banner was cut down by one of you without our permission or authority. It was thrown on the ground in Iron Springs Park. We are constantly being told how much our programs should cost, how to do them, and how to do them by people who have absolutely no clue as to what they're talking about. For example, $5,000 is a lot for birdhouses. Based on what facts? Do you know how much wood it takes to build a single birdhouse? I'm guessing you don't. Or why do you need 10 bounce houses? I think you see where I'm going with this. I've yet to see another group be told how to run their projects. We are now required to enter into contracts with the village, and that would be fine, except for the fact that other groups that do work on village property are not being required to do the same. The Garden Club and the Friends of Wiswald are not required to enter into contracts, nor are they being required to provide liability insurance to the village. We now have to provide liability insurance. Other clubs, namely the Friends of Wiswald, are receiving special consideration from certain trustees. They have a self-appointed liaison who attends all the club's meetings, and they give a club liaison report at every village board meeting. When that trustee is not available to attend a club meeting, he makes sure another trustee attends in his place. Untrue statements about our group and our non-for-profit are allowed to be circulated without consequence. We have been accused by a trustee and by your surrogates of obtaining funding wrongfully from the village. Yet this trustee voted to give us that funding. Her campaign manager even publicly accused our non-for-profit, ASCC, of not being a real non-for-profit, even though we are recognized by New York State and have a W-9 to prove it. Our ability to fundraise has been damaged because certain trustees have interfered with the fundraising process. We would love to see a list of other groups whose fundraising you involve yourself with, but I know there isn't one. A trustee has demanded to see the financials of our non-for-profit, ASCC. This demand is not only inappropriate beyond words, but has never put this demand on any other group or not-for-profit.
20 seconds.
This has been just a sampling of the treatment that this event group and not-for-profit has had to endure. I'm here to put you on notice that if this biased treatment continues, we'll be forced to take any action necessary to protect ourselves, our group, and our non-for-profit. How sad is it that a group of volunteers who just want to do good things for the community and its children have to be treated in such a manner? You cannot single out one group and discriminate against them while giving special treatment to others. It's time for you to treat all volunteer groups in this village equally, and it's time to put the residents and the children ahead of this pettiness and revenge. Thank you.
Melissa Taylor, Fort Creek Youth Court, Milton. Over the years on social media, Mayor Rossi, you and your supporters have referred to me as a non-resident because my home is in Milton, just a mile away from this lovely village. I've lived here for over 20 years, and because of the repeated attempts, in my opinion, to silence my voice, particularly when I've spoken out against reprehensible behavior, I'm compelled to share some of my contributions to this village that I always believed was as much my home as Milton is. I've been a vacation Bible school leader, Sunday school teacher, church youth group leader, Cub Scout leader, Cub Scout committee member, Scout leader, Scout committee leader, Scout merit badge counselor. I participated in Memorial Day parades and ceremonies, the holiday parades, volunteered as a reader at First Friday. When my church food pantry couldn't be run by 2 church members for their safety due to COVID, I was asked to organize volunteers and spent the early days of COVID lockdown helping to run the food pantry. Most recently, I volunteered with Livestrong at the YMCA, supporting cancer survivors from this community. My husband, also targeted by you and your supporters, has worked tirelessly as a first responder to support us, while our family devoted ourselves to the village of Ballston Spa. Mayor Rossi, are the contributions and concerns of those outside the village border less valued, even when we have been so much a part of it? What is the criteria you believe makes a voice worthy? Only residency? If so, how long is acceptable? It seems that silencing of opposition is your objective, and that is why people must speak up. For many years, I was blissfully unaware of what seems to be a good old boys club in our community who parade themselves around as do-gooders, and there is good done when they try to shut down some who share different perspectives or who criticize those they like. I see the charming peace banners lining the streets assembled by Mark Black, who tried to use intimidation to silence my husband's criticism of Mr. Rossi, Mayor Rossi, excuse me, his actions before the election for mayor, and who continually tries to belittle Trustee Cormos while he gushes over his own contributions, saying he's trying to make the world a better place. The reaction to the trustees' "this isn't a village of friends" statement was met ironically with the most unfriendly responses, proving her point better than she could have done herself. There are so many wonderful people in Ballston Spa. I'm blessed to have made lifelong friends and to have so many terrific memories here.
20 seconds, Melissa.
Unfortunately, the legal action against political canvassers, ballot harvesting of vulnerable senior citizens, attempts at intimidation and shaming, and threats of legal action for speaking out have proved the motto untrue and has created a lack of trust. Peace exists here only for some. I hope that will change soon. I believe if there is responsibility taken, public apologies, and more people standing up, Ballston Spa can live up to its motto and be a true village of friends.
Next up, Chris.
Chris Duke, 6 Kaling Drive. I had the pleasure of going to a school board meeting last week, and there was a great program that was discussed that all that I wasn't aware of that was being offered in our school. It's actually offered nationally through Project Lead the Way. It's an American nonprofit organization that develops STEM curriculum produced by U.S. elementary, middle, and high schools. And our high school, middle school are participants of that. They encourage kids as young as the 8th grade level, all the way up through high school to participate. In fact, the Village of Friends was one of the things that was discussed at the meeting. That was one of the projects that was put on anybody who was interested in the program to discuss what that means to them with regards to that sign and with regards to many of them that live within the village, a little bit more or town of Milton and surrounding environments within the Ballston School District. I think it's a great opportunity because I know there's been a few things that have been discussed at this committee over previous meetings, both with the New York Forward program, with the lack of potential participants in steering committees, and trying to drum up that interest, and also just some of the other great programs that have pulled a lot of families into this village and the surrounding environments, and wanting to continue to grow that, continue to nurture that. You have a lot of great young men and women right over there in that middle and high school that are part of this program. Some are members of the National Junior Honor Society, some others are members of National Honor Society. Has there been any reach, or I know I've seen some of your school board meetings and whatnot, and reaching out to Dr. Duca and to the PTAs. But has there been any canvassing of interest amongst the middle school and the high school to get some of these, again, young men and women to participate in steering committees? Many who are in National Junior Honor Society or National Honor Society have to have so much community service to put under their belt. And I think, a lot of them are, I mean, this program is just great with their involvement in the technology and engineering department. I mean, they're going through programs for computer science and engineering, manufacturing, communications, construction field. Furthermore, they're going and they're using and assessing the impacts of products and services on their local environment, both within the village and surrounding areas. So I think you have a great opportunity with a lot of young minds to, one, get their service out of the way, two, put their ideas forward on in a steering committee, and three, just see that process, become interested in it. Because you start them young, they're going to want to continue to do that as they get a little bit older. Plus, it's going to have a lot of them when they see, again, I've preached enough, this village is a real gem, both to live here and to raise kids here. They want to do the same as well. They see that and they feel they have some input on that as well. So I just wanted to make that recommendation to the village. I think this is a great opportunity. This would definitely drum up that interest at a very young age and hopefully continuing through. Part of the Friends of Liswell Park, I did step up to be the treasurer, but that was only because one of our members had said her young son had wanted to do it. So if a young man's willing to do it, why not? I figure I can step in and put my hat in the ring and do it. So it even encourages people my age to want to get a little bit more involved as well with these committees. So I just want to put that forward as an idea. Thank you.
Thanks, Chris.
Good idea.
Anybody else in the audience? You guys keep Lewis. Keith, you're muted.
Keith Lewis, 38 East High Street, Ballston, Spa, New York. I had a few things I wanted to speak about, but the discussion on the proposed treasurer and accounting system pulled my attention away, and I'll address that first. Frank, there's a recurring trend in the village board meetings where many of the decisions you present have only one option and must be decided immediately. And that approach forces the board to make decisions in a vacuum, which is your vacuum, staged exclusively with your information and without further verification. In the last village board meeting, you presented a mischaracterization of the town of Ballston controller's request and threatened repercussions regarding the funds for the fire department. I reached out directly to Eric Conley for clarification. They confirmed your summation was not accurate. And I believe, although I believe the vote to move the funds was warranted and would have succeeded regardless of the information you presented. But if you skew information, you train people to approach the information you present with skepticism, something I don't believe serves your objective. And I would respectfully ask the board to do the appropriate due diligence before making decisions by checking the information and discussing it at the appropriate length. I want to applaud Melissa for coming in. I've always valued her courage because I do think it's difficult in a small place like this to get up and be authentic and to present information that may not always be popular. I have to be honest, I did not approach village politics with any kind of history. I had not been going to meetings like you, Gina, for 16 years. I had no understanding that there was even a government when I showed up the first time and sat down in a village board meeting. But what I discovered was that there were issues that needed to be addressed and that needed to be addressed head on. And one of the biggest was really the finances, because I was so mortified watching the mayor talk about sticking checks in a drawer and understanding that there were people that had been going to these meetings and were allowing that kind of insanity of financial insecurity to be ingrained and normalized. And Frank, you had been participating for years. The board that is there, Sean, Liz, Christine before, and Noah, Larry as well, they went through the financial difficulty of maneuvering to a financial security, filing the income statements that were necessary, and putting away money that would allow us to be able to grow and prosper as a community. Tonight, your sister got up and she talked. I'm sorry?
20 seconds, sorry.
Your sister got up and she talked about the nonprofit. I think it's important to also remember that there is some skepticism that may come forward because your sister and Mark also harvested ballots from your apartment complex, went out and gathered 90. And although I'm currently
Fortunately, you cannot do that.
investigating the election and following through on that information, also in the recent zoning letter from Terry O'Connor across the street is a letter asking people to support that. We need a democracy that serves all people equally, and that's the only thing that I think most of us are looking.
Your time is up, and you are also in an area where you cannot use public comment for that because you're attacking individuals outside the board. At this point, you're not allowed to do so. Thank you. To clarify two things, though, that you did raise during the first part of it, I did actually, I'm glad you brought it up, check with Chief Crow on what I had asked about, and I asked the question last meeting about a meeting that apparently occurred with Trustee Cormos, Trustee Baskin, with Supervisor Connolly, which was about the fire contract, supposedly, from everything that had been told to me. And Mayor Wilbright was not invited for some reason to that. And it was held here that, or stated that Chief Crow had pushed for the trustees to go to this meeting, but wouldn't tell them the reason for it. It was a secret of some sort, etc. He says that it is completely and totally untrue and doesn't understand where that's coming from, but also knows that that meeting did occur about the fire contract at that point in time. So I asked the question, I got information here, I did do the diligence on it, and unfortunately I left with more questions than answers. Second, with respect to the options on the table, both Jennifer and Terry were witnesses to the meeting this week with EFPR, and if I mischaracterized what was stated at all, I would invite you to let people know.
Not at all.
Thank you. Next. I'm gonna have to wait for after. There's one more public comment session for folks. Come on.
I just wanted to.
Name and address.
Ron Perona, 86 South Street. Just wanted to quickly thank everyone up there for, I think it's generally been a more genial and productive meeting than usual tonight. And I hope we can keep in that direction. I'd also hope that members of the public are taking that example and being a little more careful with their snide comments and moving options. Thank you.
If we're done with public comment number one, I do want to add a motion that was apologized for not coming faster to us, but it's something that I think we're generally be in agreement on about the Union Fire Company number 2 annual Thanksgiving dinner. Giving authorization for it. Are we okay adding that to the agenda?
You're gonna do the fire.
Correct.
Okay.
So why don't I lead off with that? We'll call it any letter before A or something like that. Can I get a motion that Union Fire Company number 2 be authorized to hold the annual Thanksgiving dinner on November 24th, 2022, with preparations beginning November 21st, 2022?
I'll make that motion.
Trustee Fandesa,
Second.
trustee Cormos, discussion. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. I'm gonna move quickly here. We didn't really group the consent agenda, so, but I think we have a lot of stuff that we'll move through quick. So just stay with me here. If you have anything you want to discuss, maybe give me a wave or something as I look around to catch me. Can I get a motion that the attached budget transfers be approved?
I'll make the motion.
Trustee Fandesa,
Second.
trustee Raymond, go ahead.
Discussion, yes, there was the budget transfers presented for this meeting duplicated the ones that were passed at the last meeting. So either we need to adjust those, cross out the ones that were duplicates, or postpone budget transfers. to the next
I would
meeting.
say we go with transfers that were not raised by you, because we still have to conduct business and move money around for purposes of running the government. So we have your email outlining those. So the ones that were highlighted by you will not be
The ones to the
editing.
fire department, because they were exactly the same ones that we passed last week. Technically, we don't, want to do it twice.
So trustee Fandesa, I think was the motion. Will you accept that change to this? Trustee Raymond will accept as the seconder. We okay now?
Yeah,
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. I forgot that was coming up, so sorry to spring that as number one there. Can I get a motion that Union Fire Company number 2 be authorized to expend the amount of $7,680 for turnout gear?
I'll make the motion.
Trustee Fandesa,
I'll say.
trustee Raymond, she did it again. Discussion.
So this and the next, it's already in the budget. It's
Right, and they are different turnout gears. I looked at the vouchers myself on that one. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Can I get a motion that the Union Fire Company number 2 be authorized to expend the amount of $2,952 for turnout gear?
make that motion.
Trustee Cormos,
I'll second.
trustee Baskin, discussion. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Can I get a motion that Tricia Hasbrook be hired to fill the position of receptionist / data entry clerk with a salary of $38,000?
I'll make the motion.
Trustee Fandesa,
Second,
trustee Cormos, discussion.
is that the same salary, Denise?
Believe
or-
so, yes.
Yeah. Okay.
All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. What's the right time to, for Terry to do her appointments for deputy
After all yours.
after all these? Okay. Can I get a motion to approve the attached November 2022 Village Board newsletter for village-wide distribution?
I'll make the motion.
Trustee Baskin,
Second,
trustee Cormos, discussion? All in favor? Oh, sorry. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Getting a motion to engage LaBella Engineering in the design of ADA ramps for a crosswalk on Route 50 near Rosewood Court and Trumbull Ave to NYS DOT standards and specifications. The proposal will include completion of the required NYS DOT Perm 33 application and would be contingent upon approval by the board of LaBella's proposed fee. I took the attached out of it because there's no need to attach a public document.
All right, I'll make the motion.
Trustee Baskin,
I'll say.
trustee Raymond, now discussion.
yes, there's a question of whether this needs to be done or not, but we want to pass it in case it does.
Well, no, it does. The question was, Ben was suggesting, but we want to check with our DPW first to see if their perpetual agreement with the county's DOT office would have covered it. It did not, so we do need this. But we learned to always check with our DPW first, and then we'll go forward with these things. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion carries.
Sorry, just part of this is we don't know how much it's gonna cost. I'm hoping it's minimal because it's gotta be a standard thing to do.
Yeah, no more than $5,000, put it that way.
And so we'll do, when we find out, we'll do another motion saying.
Yeah. Can I get a motion to permit Amanda McDonald, 311 Emmett Street, reporting a potential near-term dry well situation. David and Karen Avenarius, 158 McLean Street, no water service currently. And Stephen Ryan, 66 Greenfield Ave, reporting potential near-term dry well situation to connect to village water until November 30th, 2022, or the first snowfall of greater than 3 inches, whichever comes first, pursuant to emergency water hookup extension rights afforded the Board of Trustees in section 200-1B of Village Code. Trustee Fandesa,
What's that?
trustee Raymond, discussion. This is because they haven't gotten to do it yet. November 1st is normally the deadline. There is an emergency provision in 200-1B to extend it. And so we've identified the emergencies.
And DPW, that's all these things.
Yes,
And they finally hooked up my son for it.
congratulations. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Can I get a motion that the village approves the purchase of a 2-year lease of the Diamond Map software for $1,632 and up to $600 on a tablet? Funds will be taken out of the remaining balance of the Urban Forestry Inventory and Management Plan grant.
Make that motion.
Trustee Cormos,
Second.
trustee Baskin, discussion. The $600 can be really dependent on whether you need active data or not. So let's get that answer, but we'll go up to $600. Just
Yeah,
as-
that's what they allow us,
Yeah.
within the grant. There's actually gonna be money left over because we had fewer trees than they estimated, so we are giving back some of the grant.
We can't buy a tree with it.
No, but I got the tablet,
All in favor?
but
Opposed? Motion carries. Can I get a motion that Mayor Ross, Village Clerk O'Connor, and interim treasurer Traver be authorized to execute the attached corporate resolution regarding the Adirondack Trust? Trustee Fandesa,
Second.
trustee Raymond, discussion.
So I do have questions, because on the attachment, it lists some people that I was surprised to see on there.
We're making the active fixes now. I was on the phone with them about that as well. So to the degree that we need to revise the corporate resolution, we will, but I guess on that one, Meredith is still on it.
and it's Patty Tesh is
Yeah.
the treasurer.
So we'll get these all fixed, but I think what's important is getting the authority to do the corporate resolution so we can get people added and subtracted as we need to right now.
Don Traver, and there's another person who was a library board member.
Right, Meredith.
No,
No,
there's
there
another.
was Jim Carter.
Who's right there?
Oh. Okay. All right, and that's standard for library board member. You're treasurer now, or?
No, I'm just, I
Author
guess
center.
it'd be like, I am an officer, but kind of like in quotes, assistant treasurer. So if the treasurer is out of town, there's someone who still sign the checks to pay the bill.
Now, every time we go through this, like when we add the treasurer officially and decide what we're exactly going to do with Don, I guess we could make him some kind of interim deputy treasurer or something like that, probably to give him that month and still give him the ability to help out. Every time we do these changes, everybody's got to re-sign the signature cards for authority purposes, which I apologize for. So just please stick with us on this as we get this kind of ironed out,
And is it standard for Chief Bush to be assigned?
because there's an account for police
He
department.
writes checks?
You can, yeah.
Okay, and that's how that's traditional, you've done that before? There's a new.
I believe so. Terry, what's your recollection on it?
I actually didn't know about this account, so all this came up, and he said, when, former police chief McCarthy passed, his wife donated money to the police department to only be used for, I don't want to out of my head. I believe equipment, I'm not positive, but for one purpose, and that's what that account is for.
So that's why I
Is
said.
it a
authorize something.
separate account?
Yeah.
Okay, so he's gonna be authorized only for that account, not. for
Correct.
the whole-
That's what's going on. The
Okay.
Jim, for instance, is only on the library account. So
Okay, as long as,
It doesn't say that on the contract.
you mean the resolution?
Yeah, I mean, or in the attachment either, I don't think it says what they're signing for, which line. It's a Adirondack trust form.
They don't have authority to go into the general or use or sign under general accounts. That much I can guarantee you in that. Because trust me, we went through the ringer this week because they never got set up correctly in the first place. So Don had no authority to do anything while Julia was gone. And so we had to go to the draft minutes. We had to go to the draft minutes basically and get them signed and sent over to you when get it to
But
happen.
even if the police has a line, can't we allocate those funds without him being a check signer? I mean, how traditional is it for these different departments to have their own?
It sounds like a
check signing ability?
legacy account.
Yeah,
What? You don't know?
I don't know. It's the first I've heard of it. But I mean, if the money is just from her to the police department, it's not to the whole village.
but I think
That
that
was
should
one of the
be
reasons.
somewhere
for
with
gifting.
The concern is, I trust them as much as anyone, but not them, it's the the process. The form that we're authorizing doesn't say that they're restricted to certain, it just says for this corporate, for the village, they can sign checks.
Yeah, but they can't, because there's not a resolution giving them authority to do that. So if they sign the check and you find out they signed the check isn't valid. Because
The
they don't have
bank
the
won't know
authority.
that. The bank
No, but
says,
when the board looks at the checks and see who signed, they know that.
We don't see the check.
Well, when you see when someone sees who signed what, like if for some reason Chief Bush decides to sign some check that he wouldn't sign, someone's gonna figure that out.
is it better forms and checks and balances to have fewer check signers? Because there's 4 on there, it just. in
Well,
my
you don't want,
opinion-
you don't want to get a trapped account, and we almost had that happen.
No,
this
you're
year.
right, we need you and the treasurer to be on there.
It's
I
like,
don't know what the history of the library, has there always been a check signer with the library?
I believe so, but I guess.
the library board, don't forget, is a special animal out there too,
Right.
the other budgeting works, so.
Right. So here's my question is this standard accounting practice? Is this something that's always happened?
Can I get a revision to the motion? It's, can I get a motion that Mayor Ross and Village Clerk O'Connor and interim treasurer Traver be authorized to execute the attached corporate resolution regarding Adirondack Trust pursuant to approval by the village attorney with regard to any concerns that trustee Baskin has related to outside signers.
Okay,
Yeah.
good, thank you.
Who? Okay, thank you. And
Yeah.
and now discussion. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Can I get a motion that Don Traver be authorized to access all village bank accounts, that he be an authorized signatory, and that the mayor be authorized to execute any documents related to this motion if necessary?
I'll make that motion.
Trustee Raymond,
I'll second.
trustee Baskin, discussion. Obviously, this is a holdover, tie over scenario for Don. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Can I get a
Do
motion?
we take a like motion when he's no longer in that position, or
Well,
how does that? what
we'll
does that
obviously
work?
be shifting everything back around again when we get to that point, yeah.
So,
And like I said, we're gonna try keeping here for a month to tie over, so we'll have meetings after this with that.
But we don't need to do that for Julia. We accepted her resignation, that's enough.
Yes,
Yeah.
she basically was already off. That was half the battle that day. Can I get a motion that Jason Buczek, I believe it is, or Butchek, be approved, was it?
Who's it?
Buzek? Thank you. Be approved or appointed as a member of the Village of Ballston Spa Library Board in accordance with the unanimous vote put forth by the library board on his behalf.
I'll make that motion.
Trustee Cormos,
I'll second.
trustee Raymond, discussion. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Can I get a motion that the Village of Ballston Spa Library Board be approved to apply for the Alfred Z. Solomon Grant to be used by the library to increase usage by patrons for studying, reading, and working in the library, and that the mayor be authorized to execute any documents related to such grant if necessary?
I'll make that motion.
Trustee Cormos,
Second.
trustee Baskin, discussion.
I have a question. Should it be from the, since it's the fund that's doing the application? I thought Andy said that the library itself cannot apply to Solomon, but the Friends of, correct me if I'm wrong, and I think the document says Friends of on there.
The document,
We are working with the Friends of the Library for the final edits to the Solomon Grant. We'll submit the final draft of it by October 17th, so trustees may review the application. Oh, okay, so hold on, let's go with the application. No, that's not in there.
They can, the library can. Directly.
the library can, I think, for the Solomon.
It's on their letterhead, to be honest with you.
Okay, I just
Yeah.
wanted to check.
Yeah, there's some grants have to be the 501.
The Ballston Spa Public Library Director, our Board of Trustees, and our Friends of the Ballston Spa Public Library Partners respectfully submit our application requesting a grant in the amount of $250,000 for our master plan project, is the way the letter reads. So if you want the amendment to be that the Ballston Spa, or Village of Ballston Spa Library Board be approved to apply for the Alfred Z. Solomon Grant along with others.
Well, I think
To
we're
be
covered,
used.
that's fine, I
It's
just
the
wanted to
Ballston
double
Library
check.
Board and
And
Friends of the
Friends of-
Library.
Well, we don't control the Friends of the Library, though, is the issue.
Just leave it at the board.
Yeah, that's why I was a little bit tentative to even name them there. Okay, so we're leaving it as is. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Can I get a motion that the Village of Ballston Spa Police Department be approved to apply for the State of New York Traffic Enforcement Technology Grant, and that the mayor be authorized to execute any documents related to such grant if necessary? This grant is intended to support police agencies by providing equipment associated with electronic data collection.
I'll make that motion.
Trustee Raymond,
Second.
trustee Cormos, discussion. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Can I get a motion that the Village of Ballston Spa Fire Department be approved to make repairs to the emergency siren atop the police department and court building for a cost not to exceed $1,400? Trustee Fandesa,
Second.
trustee Baskin, discussion. What you got was an invoice showing what it would cost to replace certain things. That's why it looked like that, but we're kind of doing some in-house work, but it will cost some equipment. That's why it's made as a not to exceed $1,400. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Other business?
Just, all right, one thing quickly, that I'm gonna send you guys an email. In the newsletter actually said that we have a form, if you want to fill it out and become a committee for express interest, at least, there's a form you can fill out online. So I don't think we have that yet necessarily, but I'm gonna send you a draft for your review. It just says, name, what your interest is, what your background is, and thanks for submitting. You'll see. But we might as well move that.
I wonder if there's some way we can let the students know that form exists and then they could put it in.
Yeah, let's get the form up and then we can publish it.
Quick question. Are you doing the deputy clerk motion?
I think she wanted another business and something. So
Oh, sorry.
Terry would like to appoint Tricia Hasbrook, is it?
Correct.
As the deputy clerk and deputy registrar of vital statistics. She has the right to appoint with the approval of the board. So can I get a motion to appoint Tricia Hasbrook? Wow.
That's why I have my laptop.
Can I get a motion that the board approves the village clerk's appointment of Tricia Hasbrook as deputy clerk and deputy registrar of vital statistics to fill out the unexpired term of Julia Smith? Couldn't have said it better myself. Thanks.
I will make that motion.
Trustee Raymond, trustee Fandesa. Discussion. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Public comment 2. It's yours. Seeing nobody, hold on, Bob Bush, I did see.
Bob Bush, 71 Church Ave. I just want to thank the board. This meeting has been very productive. We're out before 10 o'clock, which is great.
Only if you let us.
Don't jinx it. Don't jinx it.
Yeah.
I agree with you with the public comment. Something you made before, that stuff doesn't belong here. It's really demeaning, to be honest with you, meeting. I want to ask about the newsletter. That they want to carry again. How long is that newsletter going to be? Is it going to be a couple pages, 1 page?
It's 1 page front and back.
You got a lot of stuff in this community that's happened in the last 9 months, and you only want to do 1.5 page?
Yeah.
Just stating that. And also, is there gonna be another one before the next fiscal year?
Yes, I hope to do another one in a few months, 3 months.
Okay,
Or-
Thank you. Kristen.
Hi, Kristen Iacolucci, 24 Chapman Street. Just in the interest of transparency, is there a list of all of the different nonprofits and committees that the village board interacts with? Like, could we have that just for fairness? We want everybody to be treated fairly, that, is volunteering in the village and doing great things. So is there like a comprehensive list of all of the different groups and committees?
A good place to start is actually going back to the agenda / minutes of the officially beer meeting in April, because I usually list the general contracts we're doing to start the year. Obviously, there were things added. And then there's these things, not to pick on Gina's letter or point out things, but she brings up Friends of Wiswall, et cetera, which are subsequent and different approaches, obviously. that have occurred, and so different people disagree about whether that's good, bad, or indifferent at that point.
So, and you're saying April minutes would have that?
The first meeting of April is the official year, well, at least that historically has been the case, so going backward, it's correct. That will have it.
Well, also.
Organizational meeting, it's called an organization.
Yeah, the website also, the village website lists the boards and committees. For some reason it doesn't list the ethics committee with the others, but most of those are on there. And what's not on there necessarily is all the volunteer groups
Right,
with whom we do interact, whether it's Rotary or.
yeah, it would
You
just be
know,
great
friends
to
with
see,
law. Yeah.
give everybody their due of all the volunteer work, and I
So
know
the-
there's liaisons on the board, right? Or just has
Yeah.
liaisons.
Yeah. But on that village website also, even though they said that, there is a drop down that does list community groups.
Okay.
They may or may not interact with the village government, but there's a lot of them on the website.
And there are the ones that the village gives funds to, and we do have contracts with those.
And those are listed on the website under.
I'm not sure.
committees.
They're in the
I think that's,
organizational
that,
meeting.
I would look at the organizational minutes for that one,
It's
definitely.
actually not a bad page to have on the website. It's like the list of.
I got it.
Oh, you're gonna do it.
Mark, I'm sorry, Chris, were you done?
Mike Black, 10 Thompson Street, the gazebo. There's actually, one of the panels have a lot of the nonprofit groups or community groups that, so you could just jot them down. I collected them all for that. Yeah, but that's, yeah, on our spring gazebo, one of the panels have a lot of them, like the swimming groups and all the baseball, all the sports groups, all the children's groups, there's a lot there that I found out.
Yeah, nice to have some more kids.
Yeah, it's incredible when I start researching it, how many groups there are that help out this community.
Anybody else in the audience? Ray Otten?
I noticed tonight, I had the privilege of speaking with the Ballston Spa seniors this past week. And one of the things I brought up with them was the fact that it's very tough to get into the building that they use for their meetings. Being someone who either has crutches, walks, or rides in a wheelchair or whatever, they have no outside access for us to use to open the door. You always have to have somebody help you. It's a problem. I noticed the same thing here. Okay, there's no outside access for someone to use a button to push a door to get it open and come in here. And I'd like to see if we can maybe do something about that in the next budget. It would be a great thing to do. I talked with Scott Ostrander about Town Milton, and they're taking care of it this year. They have the money in their budget to do those access buttons. The other thing I wanted to bring up was I'm still a bit upset by the events of the grant that was taken, and I was asked to be on a grant committee, and I said I would be on the grant committee, and then the rules changed afterwards, and it was, well, you got to apply, you have to put a resume in, which is what we have to do now for every committee that the village does. You have to have a resume put in. And I was referred to as someone who is handicapped. I do have certain disabilities, and it's different, okay? And I did address that with Liz, and she says, from what I've read, all handicapped individuals are disabled. I inadvertently used the wrong term. I believe that handicapped individuals who by definition have a disability do meet the grant requirements. So I asked to see the grant requirements, and they did ask that someone with disabilities is on that committee. If you look at the list of who's on the committee now, Darlene McGraw, who has no connection with this village whatsoever, is the one with a disability, okay? I don't know if Darlene knows all the details on that, and I'll be contacting her about that. And do the words, this is from Liz's email, do the words disability and handicap mean the same thing? The short answer is no. Just like I wouldn't call you guys, hey, the chicks and the dudes that are on the board. You know, it's you gotta give credit where credit is due to people and that work around it. And the other part that she sent me, which I found really amusing, was, so yes, Stevie Wonder, who is blind, would qualify as a person with a disability. I was compared to Stevie Wonder. I am so pleased with that because I'm a musician. In fact, I spent 5 hours today with my band rehearsing, and I appreciate that I was put in the same category as Stevie Wonder. But I don't consider myself handicapped, and I will never consider myself handicapped. I have disabilities that I work around, and I think we need to be sensitive to that, Liz. We really do. Because it's not just myself, and I'm amazed that you couldn't find anybody else in this village that is a participant in this village to be your disabled person. Thank you.
I apologize for using the wrong term. 71 years old, and that's how we
I'm
refer.
70.
Yeah, well, I used the wrong language, who's supposed to be disabled. And we do have a parent of a disabled teenager in the school system who's also volunteered to be on. Once we get the grant, we'll form the committee, and as I said to you in an email, you're welcome to join the group. And you do provide a valuable perspective, being a resident of the village and maneuvering around the non-ADA compliant sidewalks and curbs and everything else in this village. And just as you pointed out, the problem with getting into buildings, the grant will not use its resources for evaluating things that are not in the public space, but we as an add-on can include looking at buildings, particularly public buildings, and seeing what could possibly be done to address those buildings.
Thank you. Anybody else in the room? Anybody on Zoom? Time for board comments, questions, and concerns. Okay, go ahead.
Keith Lewis, 38 East High Street, Ballston Spa. So to finish what I was saying, I want this village to be a democracy where we all are treated equally, regardless of who we know or who we're connected to or what we have done. Because that's, in fact, what the government should be. And although we have this motto of a village of friends, and I want to live in a community that's friendly, I want to live in a government that has process. And so when we bring up this idea, when you talk tonight about the nonprofit, and Gina spoke about the fact that the nonprofit was being asked questions, it does create a situation where people ask additional questions if there's some nepotism that's going on between individuals, or if there is some sort of favoritism that could be accused. I am on the Historical Commission. I was asked to meet on Terry O'Connor's application for a zoning variance. I abstained from that variance.
No,
in order for me. No, let me finish in terms of you've let everyone talk about these different.
Go down that route, Keith.
No, this is a good point to be able to understand that the village wants to have a uniformed treatment of everyone. So I abstained, which is the appropriate thing to do because I'm looking at the other things that had gone on in the election. And I'm never going to ethically put myself on the line. And I don't think it's appropriate for me to ever infuse myself. So I think it's important to say, hey, listen, we can be a village of friends, but we can have a process that's the same for everyone. So if we're going to include letters from everyone, we include them from everyone. If we're going to vote on adding things to a budget after the budget has been approved, those funds that were set off for those other events was after the normal budget process. It was off process. I think it's important to consider that and think to it, hey, Listen, that's okay, but it's not the norm. And process is the most important part of having a government that functions fully and democratically.
Thank you.
I'd like to add that, Terry, as the clerk, is a public official, and I think it's within bounds to comment on any public official's performance or behaviors. I've been commented on, Liz has been commented on, and I think she's
Keith
not
was,
elected, but
Keith was
she is a
raising
public official.
her application as a resident of this village and a homeowner in this
Well,
village.
his point to that was that there was something else put in that letter that was an official communication from and I haven't seen the letter, so it's like.
I
don't
don't know what you're talking about here, and I would not go
What I-
there,
what I
Keith. You're-
understand is
Ben, sorry.
that residents in the area received a mailing that had two letters in it, one from Anna Stanko and one from Terry. And can I speak to this?
Yes, you may, because you're gonna be accused, you might as well.
Yeah,
No, I mean, this is what I heard. I don't know
so
if
what
this is
was
the
mailed
truth.
out was required legally by the zoning board. I have to write a letter to my neighbors explaining what I am doing and asking for support. I also have to include a copy of the zoning advertisement that was advertised in the Gazette. There was not two letters, that's what went out. That's what was required of me, and that is what I did.
Okay, so there were two separate mailings? I don't
There
know.
was
that-
one mailing. In each envelope was my letter explaining what I'm doing and asking if you support me, if you could write a letter or come to the meeting, whichever
Right.
if you choose. And a copy of the legal ad advertising the meeting. There was not two letters.
With supporting documentation, is what you're saying.
Oh,
And that's
Oh,
the
and that's-
normal process.
That is the
Yeah.
normal process for any applicant to, yes, any applicant, your
where
code.
is that in the code?
I have,
No, because I was looking for it, if that was required.
I will ask Steph, I don't do your zoning and
Yeah,
planning,
'cause
but generally speaking, that is usually the applicant is required to send out the notice.
Heard of that?
Just as a practice, when I was on zoning, whenever there was a variance requested, yeah, we did ask the applicant to notify their neighbors and also
You don't have to
provide.
pay for it.
It's, yeah, we don't want the village to have to pay for that. That's not uncommon. So what she just described sounded very typical, so, right?
Anybody in the audience?
We already had that.
The
Well,
audience has changed their mind.
well,
Well, we already had the audience with the public.
React to what I was just accused of, Ben.
well, hold on too. We also have a hand besides Keith's up there too, no?
Yep.
Who's up?
Hannah?
Go ahead, Anna.
Hi, I actually just tuned in a few minutes ago and
Name
the
and
first thing
address.
Anna Stanko, 32 Kent Street, Ballston Spa, New York. I just tuned in like 5 minutes ago when I heard my name. So can somebody give me a clue as to what you're saying I did? I have never, ever sent any letters out to any homeowners. So I guess if I'm being accused of something, I'd like to know what that is.
I can't really ascertain what it is myself, Anna, at this point, but I think Terry has clarified it. I think Carla has given us exactly what happened, and I think we shall learn a lesson here that when it's a landowner in that capacity, we probably shouldn't be bringing up their stuff just because they are a clerk here or something along those lines. I think there's a difference between elected officials, us, and an appointed official, Terry, in this situation. So I think we've got to be very careful where we go with this rhetoric at that point. Thank you, though.
Okay, so just to clarify, it is normal practice of any applicant that comes before the zoning board to notify people within a certain distance, depending on which kind of variance they are requesting of their proposal. That has been every applicant since I've been on the zoning board, which is several years. And Terry did do that. She was asked to do that by Kathy at the building inspector's office. Every applicant that came in front of us in the last 10 years has done the same thing. She did not do anything out of line. I did not send any letters to anybody. Does any member of the board have any questions for me?
I guess there was something that had your name on it that she attached. Is that what happened? I'm just trying to understand. I
Legal
know.
advertisement
Okay, and that was I guess, the
has
impression
her name
was.
on it. When you make a legal advertisement, you have to attach a name to it.
Okay, I think that's where the confusion was. It looked to some people as if
I don't know.
there was a letter from Anna. It was the legal, the advertisement. It appeared to some of the recipients.
And my point,
So some of the recipients contacted you? Some of them? I'm curious.
No,
I honestly think this is
Yeah.
an inappropriate discussion
Yeah.
and we just described it as being typical. Let's move forward, honestly.
Gina?
Gina Morosi, and I really wasn't gonna talk again, because I really want to go to Henry's for a drink. I live at 10 Old Glory Lane, and I am so sick and tired of this attitude of, let's throw all the spaghetti against the wall and see what sticks. Pardon my coughing. First of all, besides the events that were approved after the budget was approved, what else was approved? Did somebody tell me?
Crosswalk.
Was the newsletter approved? After the budget? Can somebody answer that question, please?
It was
What else was approved besides the event?
digital advertising by BSBPA.
Yeah, what else? There were several items, right?
There were, I'm just trying to think back.
Okay, so it wasn't just the events that were approved after budget. Is that not correct, board? I'm asking the board.
Yes,
Was that not correct? Sean, Liz, Ben, Bernadette?
I don't believe there was any ones that didn't have budgets already allotted to them.
The newsletter?
Yeah, they had a budget allotted to it.
After the budget was approved. I was at the
Well,
meeting.
yeah,
She's right about that.
that was his right. That was
Yeah.
part of the negotiation.
Mhm.
well, you presented a whole bunch of amendments to the budget that we approved before you took office.
newsletter wasn't in mind, so you presented counters. I mean,
Yeah.
so
So
her
this-
her point,
this-
her point
My
is.
point
it's an
is,
exclusive
it wasn't
thing.
just exclusively the events, correct?
She's
But it was
correct.
based on your.
Liz, she's correct.
run
So it's like,
No, I'm reclaiming my time. Thanks, Ben. Thanks for pointing that out. Next, ballot harvesting. I hate to burst everybody's little bubble here, but let me just give you a little background. I helped seniors with their absentee ballots under the supervision of the Board of Elections. If there was an issue with the election, why hasn't it been filed with the Board of Elections and some action taken? Oh, it hasn't, because they showed me what to do and how to do it. In fact, I was there today. Okay, so whatever's being accused of ballot harvesting, taking people's voter rights, it's a bunch of BS. Next, the incident that happened up at Mohegan Hill. My family did not prosecute the people that trespassed, the DA did. And my family did not impose the punishment, which was a lifelong ban from the property, a judge did. Is that not correct? It's in the court proceeding. Correct? Yes, Liz, correct, thank you. So I'm really getting tired of being accused of things that I don't do. I'm getting tired of being used against my brother here, because that's all you can find. I'm getting tired of being accused of doing bad when myself, my committee, our not-for-profit do nothing but good for this community. I'm really over it, but if you think you're gonna discourage us, you're wrong, because the madder I get, the harder I work. Thank you.
Now the board comments, questions, and concerns. Anybody?
No.
Is there an undying need to talk, Mark?
Just one real quick. You guys have obviously looked at Mark 10 Tompkins Street. You guys have obviously looked over the Family Fun Day books that Julia provided for you. Was there anything there that any of you felt was, did we misuse any funds? Was any funds
misappropriated? Did we take, was there any vouchers for our own personal use? Was there anything that would show that family fun day money provided by the village was misused? I mean, I know you all must have looked at them.
Not only was it not misused, but the
Okay.
fundraising that ASCC did to help bring in additional funds for it is appreciated. And the way that was handled is a template for how to handle events like that, where the village won't put up all the money, but others can help meet the challenge ultimately on it. So it actually it was a learning process for me, especially, and looking back at it and looking at everything with Julia with respect to it, it actually was well done. And I think we owe you a boatload of appreciation for how you did handle it.
Okay, but why do we continue being attacked for it? Why are we constantly being questioned about the appropriateness of Gina's relationship or my relationship with anyone? I mean, again, you don't do this with BSBPA. You don't do this with, I mean, who does great work. I'm not going to, I'm not saying anything. Why are we continually being harassed and, stuck out, and, just attacked? I don't understand it. Could anyone tell me why? Did you not like Family Fun Day? Was the money not well spent? Did it not bring something good to our village? What is wrong with what we did?
I don't think you're gonna get an answer, Mark, from everybody else at this point.
We
So
need to just let people talk and then we respond. Otherwise, this is going to go to 11 PM. Like, let's follow the agenda. Ask your questions, say your piece, then you stop, and then we will respond if we want to. But this back and forth is endless.
They want to.
Mike Icolucci, 9 Russell Street. I don't know.
you have to address the board.
I don't know who is making derogatory comments about ASCC. And I think to the extent that I hear people expressing concerns, the concerns relate to a word that's been used a few times, that process. And for many of us, so I'll put myself in this boat, I don't understand what process was followed, if any, in going about organizing and conducting family fun day. And there could have been a process. I just don't know what it was. And what I think some people are concerned about is a lack of transparency on a process.
Can I give you the process? If you
Sure.
Thank you. When we had done the movement of money scenario, because we identified places where money was going to be used, what was it, $7,000 was initially offered for Family Fun Day, but Trustee Baskin offered additional $1,500 if ASCC raised another $1,500, basically a match scenario. So that brought them basically to $10,000. Now the problem was, give or take, I think the thing costs what was the final total on the event between the village and ASCC? Give or take.
How much did we spend, or how? I mean, no.
The total event cost basically from soup to nuts.
We haven't. That's so much. Yeah, we don't know, about 20 something.
Okay. So anyway, you can see that there's a difference between 10,000 and the ultimate number. So ASCC was basically, as a not-for-profit, allowing people to contribute at a not-for-profit basis for the event itself. And as the money had run out from the village, they pushed over money because they were ordering things through Julia, but supplementing in that manner to make sure that essentially the event would be put on and that it was being conducted by the village ultimately. And that was the understanding that it contributed to ASCC from my understanding. So that's the process.
So if I may continue,
Sure.
I saw a letter and I didn't get that connection from the letter from ASCC asking for help. So again, that helps me understand better. And I'll freely admit, I did not attend every meeting. And I don't think I was present when this was discussed in that way. So again, I certainly feel ASCC and the people involved should not be subject to criticisms. They're doing what they can for the village.
people who choose to contribute to that organization can do that, and that's one thing. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, are we ready to go to executive session or? what do you
So
want to
I'll just respond a little bit to these issues. One thing is, definitely there's been a transition from when, Mark, you've been working as a volunteer to now wanting to, get paid. And so that's fine. But that increases the cost of everything. And it also changes a little bit your relationship to the village in terms of accountability, responsibility, liability, things like that. And it's going to inevitably raise questions about how to manage our relationship with you when your status shifts. It also, we can't help but notice that there's a very strong connection between you, Gina, and the mayor, and that there are many things that have happened within the village board to advocate for your program that is not being done for other programs. And so whether that's going to the town of Milton to try to get a grant that then gets transferred down here, or going to the town of Ballston, or sending out fundraising letters saying that we support your project before we voted on it. There's things that have happened that really probably shouldn't happen, but they indicate a level of connection to this village government that is different than other nonprofits. And so that is something that we are very aware of. It was a little bit of a hybrid, the way the Family Fun Day was done, because normally if it's our event, the village event, all the money comes through the village, all the money that is generated for that event. This was done different. And so that caused some confusion among us about, are we seeing all the money? Is there more money? Where is that money? So there is, apparently another 10,000 or so that was collected for that event that we hadn't seen. Again, I'm not saying that necessarily a bad thing, but it was something we had to think about and talk about. That's a fair conversation to have, is how are we doing the accounting for this event? I know that Julia had several conversations with you guys about how are we doing this event financially. The same thing with the birdhouse, the issue of liability and who's responsible for the birdhouses and picking up birdhouses if they collapse is a reasonable conversation to have, in my opinion, and doesn't indicate any vindictive attack or anything like that. It's simply a concern for noticing that there's birdhouses that have littered the Tedisco Trail, and how, can you pick those up? So in my mind, $5,000. So we gave you $7,000 without match, and the additional 1,500 was supposed to be sort of like an incentive for fundraising, not just for you guys, but for people to say, oh, if I give money, I'm going to match.
We gave ourselves $7,000 back. It was our event. It was the village's event.
Well, that was the sort of trick of it, isn't it? Because ASCC did, and they raised money and they had the money. So it's not just our event. It was some kind of hetero.
No.
Just like when the BSPP helps, it's still your event.
All right.
No,
And
car show
and
is
this is, and this is why the birdhouses, Christmas stuff is done in a different posture, because it's not the same in that respect. And that's what as we look back, okay, with Carla and Julia, as we look back, we basically looked at the anatomy of each one of these things. That's how we landed where we did with birdhouses and Christmas, because we're like, well, wait a minute, this isn't Family Fun Day. This is a lot different. This was Family Fun Day was a legacy village event that village is putting back on, but it needs supplementation and finances, obviously, because $8,500 wouldn't have been enough to do it, or 10,000 in the form that was chosen. And so they allowed for basically tax deductibility to be applied to donations given toward it. That's why it was important to get that arm of it into it as well, because you can't donate to the village and get tax deductibility.
Still very confusing as to whose event it is.
It was the village of Ballston Spa.
Well, the other, if it's a village event, then we should have been a little more aware of the fundraising going on, the recognition of donors. Many of us on this board were not comfortable with the political advertising that happened at the event. So it really was a mix of village and non-village in terms of how it unfolded, and that's fine, you know, I mean, it's a conversation to have. How are we doing this? It wasn't the normal village event.
I think a further conversation is we should provide some consistency, and honestly, if I think the model that the SPPA has, or maybe say, they're running it on behalf of the village, but we don't own those events, and have one person who the village would contribute a fund to, and say, okay, here's the events, you decide what the money goes where for each of the events. And we have a lot less conversation here, and it would be much cleaner and simpler.
Because events is not the primary function of a village government. It's a nice thing to do. People enjoy it. But our job is to pave the roads and fix the infrastructure and plow the snow. And yes, take care of the public trees which belong to us.
Take care of the people also,
And take care of the people, but
by giving them motivation and community spirit.
I don't even events.
no, I think events are a good thing and we should continue to contribute to them. My question is,
So I'm gonna finish this myself. I think folks.
Mark,
Okay, I think for the last 3 meetings, we've had the same conversation, and it looks like we're gonna agree to disagree on certain things here, but at the same time, the things that are clear was Family Fun Day was a village event, Birdhouses is not a village event, Christmas is not a village event, and we've managed them in the ways that represent all 3 of those, or both of those
I'm
approaches.
saying that's not clear to me.
Well, then we'll have a discussion offline and try to get it back there. Can I get it? Can I get a motion to go into executive session to discuss?
The potential litigation plus update on collective bargaining plus potential purchase of property.
Can I get that motion?
I'll make that.
Trustee Fandesa. Trustee Cormos, discussion, all in favor? Aye. Yes, we have.
I have-
Should they?
Doubtful
Treasurer just closed, by the way, just.
I think there should be a proposal that every business has to stay open on village board meeting.
I think so.
It's part of the Speckled Pig idea, but it hasn't worked for some reason.
That would shorten the meetings, wouldn't it?
We-
No, they have, no.
We are back in session. No motion, no action will be taken. Can I get a motion that vouchers number 23-00067 to 23-00968 be audited and the meeting be adjourned at 9:51 PM.
I'll make that motion.
Trustee Raymond, trustee Fandesa, discussion, all in favor? Aye. Opposed? Have a good one.
Good sign.
No,
No, we're making progress.
Moving in the right direction.
But,
What do we do?
well, we didn't have any.